As we approach the end of Earth Month, there's something all of us can start doing that provides immediate and important impact, and that thing is composting. Food makes up the largest portion of our country's food waste, a full 25%. So recycling food scraps can have really drastic benefits. Turning your kitchen and your yard scraps into healthy soil traps carbon in the ground and feeds your plants the essential nutrients they need without chemicals. Compost also acts as a sponge, helping soil retain moisture so that you can use less water and improve soil structure to prevent erosion and runoff. It's no coincidence that today's program is co-sponsored by Planet New Canaan, the local nonprofit that educates our community about environmental issues and promotes hands-on action to make New Canaan and the world a greener and a healthier place to live. To minimize our waste stream, they spearheaded food scrap recycling at our town transfer station. And today they're selling zero-waste kitchen kits for $15, which include a compost bucket and a roll of bio bags. Now they're branching out to bring composting to our public schools. So if you want more information or want to know how to get involved with Planet New Canaan, please visit their resource table on your way out. Tonight's presenter is a good friend to Planet New Canaan and also to the library. She is UConn Master Gardener and Composter, Alice Ely, who speaks frequently on sustainable garden practices to promote species diversity and protect habitats. Alice really gets around from Wakeman Town Farm all the way to her own business coaching homeowners. And we're so pleased she's back with us tonight. So please help me welcome Alice Ely.
Here we go, Alice. Thanks so much. Hello. Thank you so much for coming out. Composting is very near and dear to my heart, and I'm thrilled that New Canaan is inviting me back a second time to talk. The first time was in 22 when this was a brand new auditorium. So just show me your hand. If you are currently doing any form of composting at home, raise your hand. Oh, wow. Oh, this is great. So happy to see that. So my plan is to spend about 45 minutes covering some things you may not know about composting or taking your compost game to the next level, and then that'll leave plenty of time for individual questions because I know lots of different topics come up as we embark on our composting journey. So I am a master composter. If you really want to go deep on this subject, there's such a thing. UConn has a master composting program. A lot of it is now online, and then they take turns in different parts of the state hosting the live portions of but if you're ever interested in that, check it out online. I really enjoyed the class, even more than I thought I was going to when I took it. So, as Nikki referenced, food waste is a dirty shame, and it's shocking to think that 1 out of 4 bags of groceries end up thrown away. And if food waste were a country, it would be the 3rd largest emitter of greenhouse gases behind China and the US. That's kind of daunting to think about. And as Nikki mentioned, a large portion of waste is going into the landfills and only 5% is being recycled. Well, we now have even more ways to do that than the last time I was here talking. And the folks over here from Planet New Canaan have their kits to show you. So that's part of what I'm going to talk about tonight, but it's much more than that too. So think in terms of the thing that you can do in your own backyard to help the planet is this, because 50% of what ends up in our landfills right now could have been composted in one way or another. And wasting food is a wasted resource. When you throw it away, it doesn't go away. The 20% number you've heard, food waste is also very heavy, so it costs more to transport to our waste-to-energy incinerators than some other types of waste. And the waste-to-energy incinerators that you may have heard about that are elsewhere in the state are, it sounds great. It sounds like, oh, waste to energy. Well, we can use energy. That's a way of recycling, isn't it? Well, it really isn't. And they have a lot of issues. They are expensive to maintain. A couple have been closed because it would cost too much to bring them up to speed. They weren't really doing what they were supposed to do. They can't handle the mass of stuff that's being generated. And ash disposal is a big, big deal. Connecticut towns ship thousands of tons of solid waste to incinerate each year in Bridgeport, and that's 5,000 tons of ash a year. Think if we could just cut that in half by the things we do in our own backyard. And the other thing is, what happens to that ash? Well, nobody out of state wants it, so there's a massive landfill in Putnam overlooking the Quinnebog River, and that's where our ashes are going. What could possibly go wrong? This is actually see the red circle up on the screen? So see the sanitary landfill? That's where our ashes are going, the 575,000 tons a year going into the sanitary landfill, which is right next door to the river. What could possibly go wrong? Lots. So let's try not to send anything there that we can possibly do something else with. So there is a better way. It's the number one zero waste action you can do at home. Don't put food scraps in the waste stream, whether at home, school, work, or elsewhere. Compost what you can at home. For all other food scraps, recycle them. So it's free, it's wonderful, or you can pay a private service to collect them if getting to the transfer station is just something beyond what your current bandwidth can handle. You can do it with your checkbook instead. So don't put it here. I find this a horrifying visual. Put it here. Home composting or food scrap recycling, or both of them together. You can do both. Some of us, for food scrap recycling, have a thing called a dog, and that works rather well some of the time, but not for everything. And I love the nifty stickers they have on their buckets here that show exactly what you can put in them. So that's a helpful reminder when somebody else is helping you clean up in the kitchen. It's right there telling what you can and can't do. So my journey of composting began with Paul Newman, believe it or not. He lived in Westport before he died, and he said in life we need to be a little bit like the farmer who puts back in the soil what he takes out. And that's such a wonderful metaphor for what you're doing when you compost. You can feel good about it every time you do it. So compost is great for you, for your garden. Even if you don't have a garden, it's also great. Because it improves the soil, some people, if they have enough of it, can actually spread it over their lawns, and it's a natural fertilizer that way. Compost has trace elements that you can't buy in a bag of fertilizer at the nursery, and those trace elements, minerals, and microbes help plants grow strong, so it's kind of like the secret sauce of a good, healthy plant. It definitely grows bigger veggies. I've sometimes just played with it and planted one plant with compost and the next one I put not without, and the difference is dramatic. And as you know, we've had drought. The last couple years, summers, we've had pretty bad droughts, and there's going to be more of those in the future. Compost amended soil can hold 20% more water. So if you've used your compost in your flower beds or your garden beds, it's going to do a better job of retaining water and need less watering. So that's important. But we've been talking about from the ground up, but let's look at it speaking globally, because this is really important too. Oh, and by the way, I meant to say that this whole presentation as a PDF, I will be making it available to the library, so you don't have to take notes on anything that strikes you here or take a picture of the screen or anything like that, because you'll have the whole presentation and all the detail will be arriving in your inbox, assuming the library has your email. So but think about what it can do globally, and some of this is really eye-opening. A lot of the problems of what ends up in our water supply start with nutrient runoff, excessive use of chemical fertilizers, and this helps eliminate that. You're keeping the air cleaner because it's not going to be landfills or incinerated, so we're not those methane and carbon gases are not being off-gassed. It raises agricultural productivity. It helps farms cope with the effects of disruption in the climate. So this is one of the things that was highlighted by the UN Climate Change Conference, that the single most important thing that could be done to help offset global warming, composting. So it sequesters atmospheric carbon, which means it helps lock carbon in the soil so it's not going out and becoming a greenhouse gas. These small changes in soil carbon have a big impact on the greenhouse gas balance. So just think of that. It's such a sustainable thing that you can do, again, right in your backyard. So compost success. Again, most of you are composting on some scale right now. It is interesting. Think of it as a recipe. The 5 essentials: you have your carbon-containing material, your nitrogen, your oxygen, which is what we get when we turn the pile, moisture. Moisture can be important. Sometimes when it has been very, very dry, as it was last summer, I was actually watering my compost pile to help it function. If I hadn't watered it, eventually the same decomposition would have happened, but by watering it, I was keeping things moving, which I wanted to do, and temperature above 50. Now, that doesn't mean nothing happens in your compost pile over the winter. Things do it just happens more slowly because the microbes don't move as quickly. And the 6th essential to that recipe is all the creatures that do the work, and they show up in your pile without you doing a thing if you provide the other 5 ingredients. The whole carbon to nitrogen thing is a little confusing because you may have seen this ideal ratio of carbon to nitrogen is 30-1. And you're like, wait, how do I, if carbon is browns and nitrogen are greens, how do I have 30 times more brown than greens in my pile when a lot of what I'm producing is greens? Well, the fact is, it's a ratio by that might be the chemical ratio, but in terms of actual volume of the stuff you're putting in your pile, the only thing you have to remember is a ratio of 3 parts brown to 1 part green. And again, if you get it off, what's going to happen is your compost is going to get gloppier and gloppier because it doesn't have enough browns in it. So, and it won't decompose effectively. Again, eventually something will happen, but it's going to take a long time. And to get good finished compost, respect that ratio, 3-1. So don't worry, the 30-1 that you may see if you're hearing people talk scientifically and you're like, wait, 30? Is it 30 or is it 3? Don't even worry about the 30 because that's like the raw components. And really just go by volume, parts, 3 parts to 1. So that's kind of an important thing that rule is the only one you really need to remember. And then knowing your browns and greens. Browns, high in carbon, these are some of the things that are high in carbon, are the leaves, dryer lint, dog hair. Some of us have a great deal of dog hair. Eggshells, straw, shredded newspapers. If you have a paper shredder, throw those. Some people say, well, I don't get the paper delivered anymore, I get it digitally. That's fine, but you're getting those newsprint store circulars probably in your mailbox. Those can be, if you have a paper shredder, those make great stuff. You can also shred, when you get a cardboard box or anything that's, brown paper, shred that. That makes great browns for your, so sometimes when I need more browns, I'm like, oh, time to do some shredding. I still get the paper delivered, so I shred that, but works great. Shredded wood or bark, pine needles, sawdust. There's a lot of stuff that are browns that you might not think of at first. And then greens, which are high in nitrogen. These tend to be what's coming out of the kitchen, your kitchen waste. And yes, it can go in the bucket to the transfer station, or it can go in your compost pile. Plant trimmings, dead-headed flowers, and non-invasive weeds if you've got a hot pile. I don't maintain a hot pile myself, so I don't put invasive weeds in my compost. I don't want to be fishing weeds out later from the compost, so I just don't put them in. But if I pull right now, I'm pulling things like garlic mustard that haven't set their seeds yet. I will throw that in the compost pile because I know it's not going to add weed seeds to my compost. Rotted farm manure, if you've got access to it, is a great thing. Town farms often have, like Wakeman. Wakeman's, since I've been promoting it, Wakeman's brown, I call it the brown gold, but it's really greens because it's rotted farm manure. It is a great way to rev up your pile. So if they've got any, if you're in Westport and you go by the Wakeman Town Farm, you'll see they've got it on the outside of the fence. They've got a sign over it. So help yourself, or if you have a friend with chickens, good stuff. Offer to take some of that manure off their hands. I'm sure they'll be delighted. Anyway, the more diverse the materials you're putting in your pile, it gives you the better odds of balancing your nutrients. So here's some things that you don't want to put in home compost piles, and many of them will go over there. So that's good to have the two things working together. Dairy products. Dairy products have fat in them, and they're also very hard for the on a small scale, it's hard for the microbes in your pile to digest those things. So it's better to send those things to the commercial digesters who have the oomph and the critical mass. So no meat and fish scraps, same thing. Too hard for your little microbes in your home pile to chew up. They would eventually, but it might attract a lot of friends you don't want first. So no fat, sugar, starches. Think of it as sort of a vegan pile at home. No pet feces because, carnivore feces have stuff in them that you don't want anywhere near your pile. Herbivores are okay, so grazing animals, that's why we say the manure from the farm from a grazing animal is okay. Don't put diseased plant material in your compost pile. You don't want to spread. Lots of times there are fungi in there that are like on tomatoes. I never put a tomato plant in my compost pile because tomatoes invariably have fungal diseases, and you just don't want to put that in your compost because then your next generation of tomatoes could get it. I say no coal, wood, or charcoal ashes or limestone. You can put a tiny bit of ash in there, but it's easy to overdo it because ashes can be kind of caustic and too much for the pile to absorb. So a little sprinkling in there is okay, a lot not so good. So caution is advisable. No glossy coated paper, but most newspapers now, I think all newspapers now use soy ink, so that's why newsprint is okay. You don't want anything that's been treated with a pesticide and an herbicide for obvious reasons. If you're going to use your compost on a food crop, you definitely don't want that. The invasive weed seeds I mentioned, because you don't want to give them a way to come out. If in doubt, leave it out. So branches and woody sticks, you'll find they don't break down unless they're chopped or ground and cut into small pieces and shredded first. Compostable paper products, if they're not food tainted. So if you had a compostable paper cup and it had hot chocolate in it, I wouldn't put that in my pile because there's just too much sugar and gunk in it. But if it was just a compostable paper product and maybe it had some chips on it or, a sandwich or something from a picnic, that I would probably rip up a little bit and put in. Shredded in small quantities, make it easier to break down. If it's not shredded, it probably won't break down. In case you're curious, this is what a large-scale commercial composting setup looks like. That thing is the size of a football field. And see how it's open to the air and everything. And I stood there and took this picture, and it did not smell. And the dairy farmer who operates this, the guy who operates this is the guy who makes cow pots. You know, those pots made from manure. He's a very clever dairy farmer who has used every byproduct of his business and put it into other things. So he sells this compost, he makes cow pots, and he told me that he puts everything in this pile, everything, and then they have giant machinery, earth-moving machinery to turn the pile, if you will. Didn't smell, and it makes first-rate compost. So this is the kind of place where this stuff can go. So I always say that anyone can compost because there's so many ways to do it, and there's one that's right for you. We don't all have a lot of bandwidth for this stuff, and you want to do something that's quick and easy, or in this case, it's actually slow and easy, and that's called yard waste composting. And this is a nice complement to sending your food to the transfer station. If you want to do it this way, I call it composting that's as easy as puttering in the yard. So in this picture here, what you see are, they're about yay tall, and they're just black plastic perforated sheets that you snap together so that they make a cylinder. And you call them 1, 2, 3. Pile number 1 is the one that you fill with leaves and brush and stuff your first year, and then leave it alone. And then you do the next one, you create the next one, pile number 2, and then the third year, pile number 3. And by that time, pile number 1, which has just been sitting there, is ready for you, and it's compost. So that is the slow and easy yard waste composting method. And you're all ready. What I do is I have a landscaper, helps me mow my lawn and everything, and I tell them, run the mulching attachment. In the summer, I just let them mulch whatever's there right back into the lawn. But when the leaves start coming down, I tell them to put the bagger on the mulching mower, and they capture all that lovely chopped up leaves, and it goes right into, I actually have big wired bins, but it's the same concept. You can have doesn't have to be one of these, can be a big wire bin, but something to hold it. So I actually have my 1, 2, 3 going, and then I always have, there's so many things you can do with leaves. I always have some ready to go. So that's a great thing, and this is just so low effort. So low effort. All you have to do is make sure you got one of those at the ready for your 1s, your 2, and your year 3. So the tumbler method. Now this is mainly for kitchen waste. Now I have the option in Weston. I can go to, I can take scraps to the transfer station, but I actually prefer to get as much of it as I can in my home composting setup. And that's because I value compost so much. I don't want to give anything away that I know I can use. I'm trying to keep it on the farm, as they say. So I have this. This is my tumbler. And the other thing that's really good about this tumbler, and important for those of us who live not way out in the country, but with neighbors next door, rodents cannot get in this thing. I have had the same tumbler for going on 10 years now, and no rodent, or no animal period, has ever gotten in the tumbler because it spins, and it's up off the ground, they just can't get in it. So I put my kitchen waste and stuff in there because I used to put it directly in my compost pile until the day that I found it was a half grapefruit rind, and it had been taken and set in the bird bath. So that was a raccoon, because raccoons like to wash their food. Wasn't that nice of me to provide that nice, juicy piece? You know, these little creatures, they have radar for something that still has food value. And what was an empty grapefruit rind to me was a source of food to the raccoon, but he had to wash it first. This they cannot get into. The one downfall of this is it doesn't do a good job of finishing compost. It gets it started, but it doesn't have the big enough critical mass to really do a good job of fully decomposing. So I take this and empty it and put it in my bigger compost container after about 6 months or whenever it's full. But it's really, really handy because I keep this by my back door, and it really is as easy as taking out the trash. So my back door, I just run out, I keep a little bucket, you'll see. And anyway, you can do this. You can just say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. You can stop here. But and eventually it makes compost, but it gets kind of gloppy. So you could just, spread it and let it finish composting. But what I do is add it to my main compost bin, and this is my preferred method. So you can use the spinner to start with for the kitchen stuff, and then this main compost bin, I have that out by my garden shed where I have other stuff, trimmings from plants and all that kind of stuff ends up there, and I throw that in, and then occasionally I empty my spinner station into the compost bin, and that's great. And you'll see I mentioned the compost crank, and I brought. So this is a nifty tool. So when you have a bin like that, everybody knows, it's better if you turn your compost because you've got to introduce oxygen in it. With one of these, it's really easy. I'm trying not to I know when I walk away from the mic you can't hear me, so I'm trying to be good and stand here, but it just goes, I put it in 5 different spots into the bin, just wind it down, and then wind it back up again. And that is enough to turn the pile. And you can just pull it out and do it again. So it just corkscrews its way down in. So this is called a compost crank. This one is from Lachat products, Lotech, Lotech products. And it's made in America. And I've had it for years. It's indestructible, but it does a really good job. A gentleman saw this at one of my talks and got it, and he got his compost pile up to 140 degrees in December with this thing by turning his pile. He was so excited. I think he must have been out there every night turning it, but which I don't reach that level of enthusiasm myself. I just know that it works, and it makes it's just so much easier to aerate your pile with very little effort. So that's worth having. And there's my leaf bin. You heard me mention that I have a place, because I use leaves for so many different things, and leaf mulch has a ton of usefulness. So this is my own 1, 2, 3 method, which I find extremely helpful as an active gardener so that I can have all the compost I want. Well, I always want more, but so dedicated composters. So the gentleman who was getting his pile up to 140 degrees, this is how he knew. And this is a compost thermometer. This is only if you're really into it, and some of you will be, perhaps, but it is fun to see how fast. If you have turned your pile and done a good job of mixing the browns and the greens, this heats up really fast. At the farm, I knew that if we turned a pile with a nice lasagna layering of greens and browns and greens and browns, the next day it would be up to close to 140 degrees. And I would always, the way to impress a middle schooler is to show them that the work they did the day before, and then they come in and they stick this in and it comes out and it's hot to the touch. It's science in action. It's really kind of cool. If you were so onto it that you did this and kept it hot all the time, you could kill any pathogens or weed seeds that ended up in your pile. And if you're hell-bent on doing that, by all means, you get one of these and you can order them online. I mean, they're easily available if you just punch in compost thermometer. You can find them for sale, and they're not that expensive. So that's if you're really serious and dedicated, and that's a level of dedication that I can't even achieve, but I still do like to see how my pile is doing, because it is fun. Even in the winter, it's warmer than the outside air, so I know things are working. Anyway, this is for the serious ones. So compost bins for every need. I tried to show you the full range. You can have a compost bin that costs you nothing. These wooden pallet bins A lot of stores just give them away. Just say, can I have some of your pallet bins? I've got them stacked up behind the store because things are delivered on them. And they're usually happy to. The nurseries usually have extra pallet bins. I've gotten nurseries to get. So these can be connected with zip ties and see how this was kind of like a corral. So this was used, they would turn, this was at the farm, we'd turn piles from one bin to the next. And, it's totally do-it-yourself. Or you could do this could be your 1, 2, 3, year 1, year 2, year 3, and not turn them at all. But that is the absolute homemade way to go. And then these wire bins, I mentioned, I like those for leaves because they're sort of invisible in the landscape. You put leaves in them and it just kind of looks like a rather square pile of leaves. It's totally unobnoxious to look at. So any of these methods that let in water and air can do the job. And this soil saver unit, these things are pretty indestructible. I found some of the plastic compost bins don't hold up that well. This particular manufacturer has the most durable one I found so far, and it has this nice feature which is kind of important, which is having the drawer, or not a drawer, the slide-up door at the bottom on 2 sides, so you can fish out your compost, and you just add at the top and fish out from the bottom. So that's a good design feature. And a locking lid, that's nice too. So food recyclers. A lot of people think these are composters. They're not. So these are the rather pricey units that sit on your countertop. And I have to apologize, my allergies are awful these days. So that's why I'm coughing. It's not contagious. So to keep raw food waste out of the trash stream, this is one way to do it, but you still are left with what's left over. It's really a dehydrator, heater kind of a thing. It dries up and grinds up. So what you're left is not composted, and it hasn't really been decomposed or broken down. I mean, you still have to either take what's left from that thing and add it to your compost pile, or take it to the food scrap. So you haven't really, all you've done is reduced its bulk and its water content. So it's kind of costly. I don't like that it takes up space on the counter. I got to test one. My sister got one. I didn't say I told her. But I tested it, and pretty soon I've noticed it's under the sink now. She's not using it anymore because she realized it wasn't really doing anything. It was kind of compressing the trash, but it wasn't getting rid of it like composting does. So that's my take on food recyclers. So now you've got the tools. Choose your site. For bin users to get started, you start with lasagna layering, as I call it, which is 6 inches of browns, 4 inches of greens, and another 6 inches of browns. That'll get you to your 3-to-1 ratio. And you can turn your pile once a week or not, depending on how energetic you're feeling. Collecting on the counter, this can be very low-tech. I actually sometimes use a bag tucked under the lip of the chopping board because I'm chopping so many fresh vegetables that it's just easy to sweep them in there, and then I carry that out to the compost bin. But some people have a lovely designer crock, and that works too. These are the questions I'm most often asked, and this may answer one of yours, but we have time to cover what I haven't covered. But troubleshooting. When somebody says my compost smells, what happens when it smells is that the anaerobic decomposers are getting busy, and they are the ones that can decompose without oxygen, and they give off sulfuric gases. That's what smells. That's why a closed trash can smells so bad. That's an anaerobic decomposition going on in that closed trash can. So it's especially common when there's things that are greens, nitrogen-based, are gloppy and very often very wet. So that tends to basically it drowns it drowns the microbes that want to work in an oxygenated environment, and you're left with the ones that make things stink. So if it smells or it's gloppy, which can happen with those tumblers, add more leaves. So by my tumbler, I keep a bucket of leaves, and I add that in there, and that helps take away the smell and actually get the balance, the recipe just right. If it's attracting animals, start your produce trimmings in a closed tumbler, as I suggested, and be sure you're not composting anything too attractive if you're using an open bin, like that half grapefruit that I mentioned was too attractive. If you don't have the time, keep it simple with a 1, 2, 3 pile. If nothing's happening, go back and see, is it too dry? Dampen it. Are your greens and browns out of balance? Just get them in balance. Aerate your pile. Those are usually what it takes. If you're ending up at the end of the day with finished compost with chunks of branches and stuff, they probably weren't, they were too big. The microbes can't break down things that are too big. So I just sort of break them in half and throw them back in the top. Oh, thank you so much. So what to do with your black gold? So think of all the things you can do with your compost, and if you have too much, I'm sure your neighbor will be overjoyed to get some of it, but I never have enough because spreading it lightly over your lawn uses up a ton. Our soil, by nature, New England soil, is a little poor, a little sandy. This is a wonderful way of adding organic matter to it. You can top dress or side dress an existing planting. You can make compost tea. Compost tea is really cool. There's an elaborate way you can do compost tea with an aerator or anything, but there's a simple way. You can do compost tea right at home. You take something like an old stocking, and you put the compost inside, close it with a rubber band, and then you put it in like a 5-gallon bucket. And in an hour or so, it'll be the color of weak tea. It's ready to go. Plant leaves can't take up compost. The roots can, but plant leaves can take up compost tea. So you can like sprinkle it over over some of your plants, and they're actually going to get beneficial nutrients that will help them fight disease. And it will really, and they can take in some of those nutrients directly into their leaves, which is great. So compost tea, you just have to use it. Since you didn't aerate, you got to use it within the day. Just make enough that you can use it up, because it won't retain those benefits for more than a day. You can add it to potting soil for your container plantings, which is a really good thing to do. And the only thing, I knew somebody who lived here in New Canaan, and you have free compost at, and she took, she called it dirt. She completely filled her whole raised beds with nothing but compost. That's a little bit overboard. And if you do too much, you're going to add excess phosphorus, which is hard to get rid of. I mean, phosphorus is great. It's the P and NPK, which are the 3 fertilizer components that you want. But phosphorus is easy to overdo because it doesn't dissipate into the soil as quickly as nitrogen and potassium do. So just be careful that you don't go overboard. This happened to me early on when I was gardening. I was so excited with my compost, I just kept putting more and more on. And the first time I ever went and did a soil test, I found out I had too much phosphorus. I had excessive amounts of phosphorus. So from then on, I backed off on the compost. I added chopped leaves instead, and I just added nitrogen and potassium separately to allow the phosphorus to calm down. Because when it gets out of balance, then your plants don't grow as well as when it's in balance. So if you're not sure, if you've been going overboard, you think maybe on the compost for a while, get a soil test. So, as I said, follow the organic farmer's principle, which is keep it on the farm. Don't export resources that you can use in your home gardens and your home lawns. It's great stuff and easy to do. So, food isn't trash, it's a resource, so we don't want to waste it. and we want to get it back in the earth where it began. So that's it for my talk, and
Let's take some questions
Yeah.
from the audience, and we're recording this, so if you raise your hand, I'll bring you the mic so that the recording can capture your question for others to see. Okay. Hi. Early on, you said what not to put in your compost, and you mentioned sugar, starches, and fats, I think. Could you expand a little bit on that? Because I compost everything, and we don't use a lot of meat products or animal products, but I do often put in rice and potatoes and coconut oil, etc. So, and actually that works really well. What's your idea about this?
and what you are probably composting at a fairly high level and putting a lot of stuff in. So the general guideline is to avoid the sugars and the starches because it takes longer for the microbes to break those molecules down. And in many home piles, if they were to put all that stuff in, it would comprise too large a component of what they were adding to the pile. If you're diligently adding lots of stuff to your pile, it is okay to add that, but you may have a rodent problem unless you're doing it in some kind of a well-closed container, or it can also, we're starting to get bears around here, and I try to keep anything that's carb-rich. I don't want anything too attractive in there. So that would be my reasoning, and that's why I give that general advice. But if it's working for you and you're obviously managing your pile carefully enough, and you're not having a problem with rodent access, then go ahead and do it. But that's why I say not to. For that reason, it doesn't break down as well. It can attract rodents or even larger furry creatures, and so I would say proceed with caution. And so that's why, just as a general rule, I say leave those hard to digest things for the commercial composters. But if it's working for you, you're obviously doing the right thing. So.
More questions?
Hi. I noticed one of the slides said that if you use herbicides on your lawn, the grass clippings should not go into the compost. So do you have a pesticide-free lawn?
Yes, I do. Mm-hmm. And because I use my compost on my food crops. So if I suppose it's just, if you're using an herbicide and the herbicide gets in the compost, and you're trying then to turn around and use it as a nutrient for other plants, you're giving them a side of herbicide. So you don't really want to do that. Of course,
How is that different from non-organic fruits and vegetables that are treated with pesticides and herbicides?
Well, it's not like a direct application, and obviously organic is always best, and to be strictly organic, you wouldn't want to do that, especially if you're a farm and you're selling organic produce, then that would be a no-no. But it's several steps away, because remember, the laws governing what chemicals can be used on non-organic produce assume that the chemical has broken down and is no longer there, or you've washed it when you rinsed it. In theory, the chemical residue is not still there on that tomato or whatever to the extent that it would impact a compost pile. Best thing is to just go organic with everything, but there are degrees of risk, and direct application of an herbicide that's going directly into your compost pile, that would seem to me to be a higher risk than something that has been washed, et cetera.
We had another question.
And she's been, yeah.
whenever I'm gardening, I find earthworms and I always take them to my compost. Do you think that's anything that you should do or not?
Well, earthworms surprisingly are not as efficient at decomposing. They are not doing, the vast majority of work is being done by billions of little microscopic organisms. So earthworms are, now I also do vermiculture. I have a worm bin with dedicated worms, and I give them some of my really gloppy stuff. And because I have other things that I do with worm castings, like on my potted plants and everything. So it's not hurting anything to add them. There's the whole problem of the jumping worms, the invasive species and all that, and no worms that are in our North New England lawns were there before the Ice Age. These all came, they were all imported from Europe. Our worms were killed. In the South, they still have native earthworms. Up here, they're not. So it's kind of an academic argument, but it doesn't hurt that you're throwing them in there.
Question?
Hang on. Oh, sorry.
Sorry. Can you explain the difference between doing those simple compost cylinders that you were talking about, doing those in that cylinder form versus, or the cubes, versus just having a pile?
There's really, the difference is, it's so much easier to know that what's in the cube has been there for a year. Whereas if you've got a pile, it gets dissipated, gets blown around in a big wind and everything, and then, I mean, it's doing so good, but it's going to be more controlled of a breakdown process if it's confined to the cube. But yes, the absolute laissez-faire way to do it would be just to have a leaf pile maybe on the edge of your woods. That's absolutely laissez-faire, but easier to, I think, access. And because you can just lift that cube off and dig into it with a shovel and you know, scoop it into your wheelbarrow and trundle it over to your garden a little bit when it's all spread all over the place by the wind. It's not quite as easy to access that good stuff for your own gardening purposes.
I have a question. What is compost starter that you buy in the bag? And at what part in the process is it good to use it, or is it not good?
It's not bad. It's a very rich concentration of nitrogen is really what's in those things. So if you think maybe I don't have enough greens, didn't add enough greens to this pile, I need more greens, you can sprinkle some of that stuff on, and it will basically, you're just tinkering with the recipe. You're making sure my compost instructor said you really don't need it if you're balancing your pile. But if you thought you might not be and you wanted to see some action, but I definitely wouldn't add that stuff to a gloppy. If you have a gloppy mess, you know you've already got too many greens and what it needs is browns like leaves and stuff. So that's really, just know that that's really what you're doing, is adding some concentrated greens.
I actually have two more questions. One is wood chips for browns. Is that a
Yeah.
fine thing to do? If they'll break down a little faster than twigs, probably?
Yeah, because they've been shredded. Some of the wood chips, like you get from an arborist, are pretty big and chunky, and those might not break down all that well. Might take a while.
And you don't want things that have treated.
Right. If you don't know don't
Right.
know where it's been.
And then my other question is the farmer whose compost situation you showed that picture of.
Yeah.
Is he in Connecticut? Is he local?
Yeah, Friends Dairy. They're up in, yeah, thank you, yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Two questions. One is, when's the best time to add the organic matter to a vegetable garden? Tomatoes, zucchini, eggplant. And second, brown material. Probably a little bit hard to come by now with all the leaves gone, and not everybody saves it. But you mentioned boxes, like Amazon boxes without the tape, just shred it up and put them in?
Yeah, if you have an office paper shredder, just, I cut a few strips and that makes some nice browns really fast.
And the craft paper that Amazon is using now to package things, that brown craft paper, if you shred that, that's compostable
Yeah,
as well.
yeah.
So like brown is good because it's
Yeah.
not treated with bleach. Like white paper towel is not good, but the browns. Okay.
I'm beginning to understand composting. So when you mention no sugars, you're not referring to fruits, right? Fruits are okay.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm talking about refined carbs
Okay.
is the no, and fruits are definitely the yes. Yeah.
So like cookies and muffins and stuff like that from
Yeah,
the store?
exactly. Those, yeah, baked goods, yeah.
So we have to eat them.
Yeah. Oh, there's the. You're getting your steps in, aren't you?
Can you speak a bit about the supposedly compostable containers, like takeout containers? I'm assuming like when you say things can't be dirty, but like coffee filters are
Coffee
fine,
filters
right?
are most definitely compostable.
Right.
I get the untreated
the
brown
unbleached,
ones.
the brown
Yeah,
ones.
yeah, the brown ones, and I put tea bags in and things like that. Yes.
And the library uses BPI certified compostable containers in the cafe. Some of them, maybe not all of them, some of them are like recycled plastic. But the stuff that's truly compostable will say, it's almost like engraved on the plastic, it says BPI certified compostable. And that's legit. That's not greenwash.
Exactly, and that's just, you want to be very cognizant of how was that product labeled. Did they just throw that on there, which some were doing, or does it have that certification to tell you it's really good? And so did that answer your whole question about the gray areas on compostable
Like
things?
takeout containers?
If it says it's compostable, but does it have that stamp on it that says it's certified as such? I tend to, I know it's crazy because you can't put them in paper recycling. You can't put it in your single stream recycling. And unless I really know that it's okay, like I use, the pulp egg crates? That's the only kind of eggs I buy because I know that is just mashed pulp, and I rip it up and put it right in my compost. But anything that I suspect has a coating on it, and I don't know what the coating was, I don't. Now, have any of you gotten the popcorn packaging material that just kind of disappears into nothing when it gets wet? I talked to, what is her name? Jen Heater-Jones. About that, I said, can I put that in my compost pile? And she said, yes, but I probably wouldn't overdo it because it might get too gloppy. But she said, yes, you can. So I've been putting it a little at a time in my compost. So,
Alice, I'm going to jump in for a quick second.
Oh, yes.
I'm Dawn Kurth. I'm with Planet New Canaan. And what I just wanted to let everyone know, there are those of us, and I am in that bucket myself, no pun intended, but who are sort of lazy composters. And what I mean by this is that I get all the environmental benefits, but none of the yard work. So I have a bucket in my garage. I keep a small bucket on, it's literally a bowl, one of my mixing bowls with a silicone cover on my kitchen counter. After I finish with my food scraps, I bring them into my bucket, which I then take to the transfer station in New Canaan. And there are receptacles there that you just dump your compost, your food scraps in. You can use the BPI certified compostable bags. You don't need to, but if you're going to bag it in the bucket, you have to use a BPI compostable bag. But the whole idea is that anybody can do this. And I know a lot of you here are actually home composting, that's great, but tell your friends, talk to people, let people know that you don't need to always go to sort of these more complicated steps or more intense steps, that you can just keep a bucket in your house and bring it to the transfer station. I will remind you that transfer station passes are technically required, and you can get one either if you have your own hauling service, there's a lower rate, and they renew every year at the end of June, so June 30th. But if you have any further questions, we have our buckets here for sale today for $15.
And the transfer station sticker is a real bargain because you not only get access to the compost bins, but there's a swap shop that Planet New Canaan runs, and it's free. You can take your stuff there and drop it off for somebody else to use, or if you are in the market for something, you can check there first. They also have fabric recycling. They have book recycling, that the aluminum can recycling, and aluminum really does get recycled, unlike a lot of plastic, because it's very expensive. You can discard your old sofa or, whatever. You can, you get weighed. You go in and they weigh your car on the way in. Yeah, no, not at the swap shop, but the transfer station's a really good bargain, and it's also a great way of supporting these initiatives in the town. What is the cost? Do you know?
So it's, if you have your own private hauling service, it's $45 for the year. If you want to use the transfer station completely for all of your waste needs, it's $75 per year, and that's to the town of New Canaan, not to Planet New Canaan.
Yeah, that's great. And they have free compost, but it's full of weed seeds. One more question before we close this out. I'm sure Alice would be happy to chat with you after.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. It was really interesting. I have been dabbling in composting for years, and I'm in the situation where I have the black plastic container with the cool drawer at the bottom, and it's very thatchy. So
Thatchy.
yeah, I think I left it too long, and when I looked at it, I thought, oh no, I can't even use it. So I think I need to start another pile.
What do you mean by thatch? Like, did it root? Is it like root, like pot bound or root bound?
I think I could use that corkscrew thing.
Yes, that would help break that up. And
Okay.
you just push it, crank it down in and pull it up and crank it down and
The
pull it up.
pitchfork
No, it's-
is not doing it.
Yeah, no,
So-
it won't.
Okay.
So, yeah, that, and sometimes.
Alice, talk in the,
Oh, sorry.
thank you.
Sometimes, thank you. When it gets, if you were putting too much sticky stuff in, sticks, not sticky, too much of that, not chopped up enough, like with a pair of pruners. So what you can do is kind of pull some of that mess out and throw it back in the top. But mend your ways, and eventually it will break down. So I sometimes just go through, pull that out, and get your compost crank and kind of mix it up better. But yeah, and there were probably just too many pieces of big dry material, and the little microbes like things to be kind of cut up. So it's good. Sometimes I just go through with clippers or something and just chop things up before I put them in there. I also have something called Works, WORX, which is it's a leaf chopper thing, and it's a machine, it sits on top of a canvas barrel, if you will, kind of a collapsible canvas barrel, and I throw leaves and brush, a lot of sticks and stuff in there, and it comes out this lovely crumbled up stuff. And so I'll do that sometimes, and then I put that in the compost, and the compost just gobbles it up. So,
WORX?
WORX.
Is that something you buy online, or?
Yeah, I did get it online. So I believe it's called works is like the brand name on it, but I think it's called, if you, like a leaf chopper or a leaf mulcher, that'll get you to the place where you can see it advertised. So it's it's electric, and it has, actually, what it does to chop it up with is not a scary thing. It's the same nylon cord that you see on a, on a weed whacker, they spin with a nylon cord. Well, this thing is just a bigger spinning nylon cord, and you just dump, and you can take about 10 bags of leaves and little brushy pieces and sticks and stuff. 10 bags makes 1 bag. So it's very nicely chopped up, and it's like gold.
But
So
you don't
I
want to
do
put
that
your
sometimes.
finger, I mean, that's,
Well, I mean, but it's not scary because there's this hopper, and you're dumping stuff in the hopper, and it's spinning. I mean, we actually had middle schoolers at the farm helping dump stuff in it, so, because it was just not dangerous. I mean, you'd have to have your hand way down in, and you just wouldn't do that.
if you're going to photograph a slide, this is a good one because if you have questions, you can email Alice at alice@gardenwithalice.com, and I think we're going to have to close it out now, but you're going to be here if people would like to come and chat with you. Thank you all for coming tonight, and thank you Planet New Canaan for helping us put this together and for being here with the compost buckets. Good night.